Welcome to Rebuilding Careers. I'm Bonni Pomush, the CEO of Working Wardrobes, and today I am joined here by two amazing members of our community. Bart Asner to my right and Ewell in the screen next to us. And I want to welcome each of you. We're going to share a little bit about what you do, so I won't introduce your careers just yet. But let's share what we already have in common, which is Working Wardrobes. At Working Wardrobes, we work every day to build bridges. We build bridges over barriers to help people re-enter the workforce. In each of your respective careers, I'm curious, do you have an experience of someone investing in you and your career, and what kind of difference did they make in your life? Rocky, would you mind getting us started?
Sure. So when I was a very young thing, fresh out of college, I thought I wanted to go to the Peace Corps and make the world a better place. And that really was the full extent of my plan. I had student loans that I needed to pay, so I got a job at a bank, ended up working in a compliance division. The head of that division, who happened to be general counsel for the bank, this was in Texas at the time, kind of called me in because he knew about my educational background and just kind of wanted to understand what I wanted to do. And I said, yeah, I want to make the world a better place. And even if I work for a corporation, I want to do something that's part of making that corporation help make the world a better place. Expecting him to just like be, yeah, okay, good luck with that. Well, no, actually, what he said next was, well, that's kind of what I thought. And I want to make an introduction to you to our the position was called CRA officer. CRA stood for Community Reinvestment Act. Our CRA officer for the state of Texas. She is looking for someone who can be a project analyst in support of the work she does. And her job is really to help the bank make a difference in our communities. And I was like, whoa, get out of town. Seriously? So he made the introduction, and to make a long story short, I still remember sitting at lunch with this woman who was in my wedding. So that kind of tells you how that worked out. Um, her saying, here's what we do in my part of the bank, and here's how we empower communities. Here's how we make life better for working individuals, for diverse communities that have historically been underrepresented. And that's where I've been my entire 35, 40-year career in that space. Were it not for the general counsel in Texas back in the day years ago saying, can I tell me about what you want to do? Well, have I got a opportunity for you? Who knows how things would have turned out. So yeah, when people reach out, say yes and listen to them.
Wow, Rocky, and it started with wanting to make the world just a little bit better. And who knew there was a whole job for you to do that? That's
A whole
incredible.
division within the bank that's what
Right.
you do. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, what about you, Bart? What a story of someone investing in you and your career?
Sure. It's interesting how our lives have twists and turns based on people being willing to invest in us. In my career, I was a practicing pediatrician for about 15 years and very happy taking care of kids and the families, and life was good. I was doing what I loved doing. And one day, a physician who was very respected in the community came to me and said, I think we need to start a large medical group in the community. It'll be several hundred physicians, and I want you to lead that group. And I went, I've never done anything like that. I mean, I have a small little practice. I've done a good job there, but I don't really know much about starting a large group and running that group. He said, don't worry about it. You're going to do that, and I'm going to be there to guide you and mentor you through this. And indeed, he did just that. So I ended up being the chief executive officer of an organization that later became Monarch Healthcare, where I spent 30 years of my career subsequent to that time. And in the early years, he was right by my side, mentoring me, guiding me, because he had the experience that I didn't have in the business world. And he would come to meetings with me just to kind of sit by my side to make sure if I needed any help or guidance, he was always there. He also taught me how to present in front of large groups of very skeptical physicians. Mm-hmm. Physicians are not easy to convince to go down a certain path. And he was always there helping me. So I learned a lot from him, and it really was a turning point in my career.
Wow, and interesting how each of you were able to take that risk because someone said, I believe in you, and yes, you can. To your point, Rocky, they said yes. There is a first yes, and that first yes is my next question for each of you. What was your first paycheck? We always talk at Working Wardrobes about the power of a paycheck and just reflecting in time. Bart, if you don't mind, what was your first paycheck story?
Sure. Well, my first paycheck was as a teenager delivering groceries to seniors in my community. And I didn't get paid much to do that. I was really working for tips. The best part of that is I learned the importance of customer service, because if you're going to receive a tip, you better do a good job for these people. And these people lived often on the third or fourth story of a building, and it was only a walk up. So obviously they needed help. But my first true paycheck came when I was in college, and I actually worked for a cardiologist whose office was near my school. And I learned a lot in that role because I did whatever was required of me, from picking up lunch for him, driving him to the hospital, but also doing his cardiograms, doing his x-rays. And the more I did, the more he was willing to teach me, and the more he was willing to give me the opportunity to grow as a helper for him. And so that was wonderful. And in fact, it was one of the reasons that I decided I wanted to go into medicine, because I got a firsthand look at what it was like to take care of patients, and frankly, a lot of very sick patients in a cardiologist's office.
Wow. Good luck, Rocky. It's not a competition. You don't have to top that first paycheck story. But what is your first paycheck story, and what did you learn?
So my first job, I grew up in Texas. My first job was working at Whataburger. And if you've ever been to Texas, they're the huge marquee chain of fast food stuff that's there. Whataburger is what a burger should be. So I was
a cardiologist in business.
I know.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
listen. Don't listen. So I got the job because one of my cousins worked there and they were hiring. I went in for the interview not having never done anything that could even amount to being a paying job other than maybe babysitting a little bit. So I wasn't a great interview, but I think they were desperate for people to hire. So, I ended up working behind the line, putting together hamburgers for a summer. And it was the first time I'd gotten a paycheck. And the big thing I remember is how much got taken out, and then having to decide of what's left, what do I get to do with that? Do I open a savings account? Do I go buy something? At the time I was really into fish and aquariums, and do I just blow it all on kind of restocking that? So, it was interesting. I had to learn how to work with people. So for me, this was just a summer gig. This was not my career. There were folks there for whom this was the career job, and they were going to work up to manager, or they were supporting a family working in that space. And it's the first time that I remember being consciously aware of my position in the universe and what was ahead compared to where other people were in the universe and what was ahead for them, and really beginning to think about uh, privilege and opportunity and education, and having that be real for me. So I think that was the most important takeaway, because I knew at the end of the summer, I'm going back to school. I was on the college track. But for other people, this was, this was real life for them. And that stuck with me. That part of it was what really stuck with me.
Listening to you, I'm inspired. I'm going to take my next job at In-N-Out Burger, because I think that would work really well for me as a career transition.
You did get free burgers.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's so funny because I think about burgers and fries, as you're saying that, as a bit of a family tradition for me. And oftentimes we would emote and have food. And as I'm laughing about that, there are a lot of traditions that we have in our culture and in our work cultures that we are part of creating. By leading sometimes, by participating in it sometimes, by being the newest employee, by being the seasonal employee. I mean, there are cultures within these, communities we create at work. This was my first year at Working Wardrobes to end the year, and I loved that the culture here was in November. There was a Friendsgiving potluck where everyone was asked to bring a food item that was, culturally specific to them and their, whatever that meant for them. And then in December, we adopted 4 families, and we, came from at the holidays, sometimes very laden with consumption to come at it with generosity. Those were traditions that were very meaningful to me to observe and participate in. I'm curious, with Optum, with Monarch Healthcare, with US Bank, what were some of the traditions that were meaningful to you or still are meaningful to you in your workplace? And what is meaningful about them to you? You want to get us started again, Rocky?
Oh, sure. So with the pandemic, our team, and we're a team of extroverts and people persons, people, because our role, we're part of the corporate social responsibility team, and that social is all about, that is the sort of the manna from heaven for us in this role. And with the pandemic, you lost that. And you also, even though we're geographically spread across the country, we also lost just a little bit of sense of connectivity. And so we started a tradition of a Friday question of the day. And it began as something like lighthearted, like share a picture of your favorite pet and tell why. What's your favorite song that when you hear it, you can't get it out of your head? That was a tough Friday. And then everybody across the, I know all these songs are stuck in your head. Everybody across the footprint kind of chimed in with the comments and the stories. And then, as time went on, and it really did both lighten the mood, but also bind us together around something. One week, the question was, tell us about your grandparent, a favorite memory. And my grandmother raised me, and so I ended up sharing a photo of me at 5 with a little pigtail on my head with her at her workplace. She was a maid, and the folks she worked for took a picture of us. And other people shared these beautiful pictures and stories about, Nana or Mimi or whatever. And it really almost moved you to tears to read through them. And so we continue the tradition, and sometimes it's a really lighthearted question, but other times it's something a little more serious. It's been a marvelous way of just reminding us about what matters and reminding us of who each other is. Like, we work for this really amazing company with this amazing set of folks. And that's been lovely. That's been one of the best, I think one of the best things we've done to both encourage and create that sense of community and caring.
What's amazing about that too is that no matter what the role, you're acknowledging each other's common humanity, and there's so much respect amongst all layers of the organization with that kind of approach.
Yeah.
Bart, you recently retired. Are you on week 2 of retirement?
This is week 2 of retirement.
What traditions are you going to miss?
Well, at Monarch, we had a number of traditions focused on culture, the kind of culture that you talked about being created at your company. One of the things that we did is we created a breakfast with the employees. So we had about 400 employees. We bring in about 12 employees every month to meet with the 4 executives of the company and just have breakfast. And really, we wanted it to be a very informal time to just get to know each other. So we'd start with an icebreaker, kind of like what you described. And it was fascinating how comfortable they became within a few minutes to ask us questions about how things were going at the company, how it was being run. They critique some things. I learned things that needed to change. it was terrific. And one of the real fun parts was other times in the future after those meetings, I would walk around the company and people would, instead of looking down when I walked by at their desk because they were intimidated by the CEO walking by, they'd look up and say, "Hey, hi, Bart. Nice to see you." And it just changed the total culture. We also had an employee engagement committee that was run by the employees themselves to decide what things we wanted to do for fun and for meaning. And for fun, we'd have things like ice cream socials where the executives would serve ice cream. We'd have hamburger weekend and we'd be flipping burgers for them. But we also went to the other extreme of saying, what charities do you want us to invest our time and energy in? And they picked those charities. And so it was really meaningful to empower the employees to do just that. And again, it made them feel like this was their company. It wasn't our company as the executives. They really felt it was their company. And I've had a number of them who've been with us for 20, 25 years and literally grew up with us and said, this is about family. And that was the best feeling I could have, that we created a family.
Wow. We're going to hear more from these two incredible corporate leaders when we come back from a break. I invite you to take a quick one, but listen to this message. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Bonni Pomush, CEO here at Working Wardrobes, here with Bart Asner and Rocky Ewell from US Bank and newly retired from Optum and Monarch Healthcare. This is the inside of Working Wardrobes, having great conversations with corporate leaders like you who can sort of shed some more light on your experiences, and I'd like to ask you to do a little bit more reflecting before we talk about the workforce today and of the future. This year, again, my first year with Working Wardrobes, our entire team engaged in an exercise where we talked about what were the things that were most important that we need to put first this year. And I'm curious for each of you, what is most important for you? You know, there's this sort of metaphor with the jar of time, and you got to put the big stuff in the jar first to make enough space for the little things. What are the big things for you this year, Bart? It's a really new year for you.
Yeah, it really is quite a new year. I've obviously worked a long time in my life and had enormous amounts of responsibility. And now I have time on my hands to do what I want to do every day when I wake up. So, of course, the usual, I want to exercise more, want to read a little more. I want to travel a little more. So I have my plans laid out for the year. If the pandemic ever lets up, the travel part might happen again. But for the moment, obviously, that's a challenge. But I also want to find a way to do good with the experience that I've had in my career. I know a lot that can be helpful to other people. I was mentored in my early years. I can mentor people today. So I'm getting involved with charities. Working Wardrobe, obviously, is one, and a number of others where I think I can just bring help to them and do good with my free time. So I had a meaningful career in healthcare. Now I want to have a meaningful career going forward and still bringing value to the community.
And may it be so.
Thank you.
What about you, Rocky?
Well, I am looking forward to retiring. So I will be watching your journey with excitement. So I can
Call me anytime.
So, you know, the pandemic has really brought into sharp focus, I think, for me at the personal level, but also at the professional level, about why certain things are important and why certain other things are negotiable. And I have spent a lot of time making sure that I'm investing energy into what really matters, and I'm not investing in things that really aren't going to bear fruit, don't have merit, and aren't going to enrich either my personal or my professional life. So from a work perspective, I think it's been wonderful to really be able to be part of the bank's response to the challenges that the pandemic has brought to our community. And within those challenges, to actually see opportunities to do things more vigorously, more thoughtfully, in a more innovative way within that. And that's been heartening, because sometimes you think hard times are hard times, but sometimes hard times are an opportunity to really be creative, be flexible, and to sort of build the world back better. Personally, I think I have a new appreciation for the time spent with my husband. We married a little bit later in life, and it's such a beautiful thing to be doing your work and then pause for lunch and just walk downstairs, and your life partner is pausing for lunch at the same time, and you can just have a moment to go walk, to go sit, to go appreciate. And that's it's been the quiet little moments like that that have had the most meaning, and it's been really being able to be crystal clear about what matters and what doesn't in a way that I'm not sure I was as much before. That's really been important to me this year.
Wow, well, two thoughts in reflection on your response here, Rocky. Thought one is we're going to be in trouble with our respective wives. Thought two, I should have mentioned not on the big stuff. But yes, absolutely. The other one is this piece about intentionality and really taking those pauses for reflection and why. Why am I doing what I'm doing, or what is I'm really trying to accomplish or achieve? And having, I guess, the opportunities that the pandemic has created for us to rethink those questions for ourselves and recalibrate how we do our work. I'm curious, for each of you in your respective industries, there is obviously a focus here at Working Wardrobes about preparing our workforce, right? Helping people overcome barriers so they can re-enter the workforce. Would you share with us a little bit about what are the most pressing needs, hiring needs, or maybe it's training and workforce development in your industry, and give us a little bit of information about that and what would a person need to know or do to be able to even bridge that gap?
So US Bank, just for folks who aren't as familiar with us, we're the fifth largest bank financial services provider in the country, headquartered in Minneapolis, with retail locations in sort of the Western 24 states, and we do business in every state in the country. And because we have 70,000 employees, there are a multitude of skill sets, backgrounds, and qualifications that someone can have that could bring them to us. We talk about ourselves really as having the people in our workforce as being the thing that's mission critical for everything else that we do, and we've been recognized by various organizations for being an outstanding place to work for various groups of people, including, for military and veterans. We've been identified by LinkedIn as one of the 50 best places to kind of grow and advance in your career. We've had recognition for our hiring of LGBTQ associates. We've received recognition from Working Women magazine for the way in which we are a great place for folks that are working and raising families at the same time. So it is a place that can be the right place for any number of skill sets and backgrounds. We're very focused on ensuring that our workforce is diverse, and that from the bank's standpoint, it's providing both opportunity and an environment for meaningful day-to-day engagement and activity, as well as personal and professional growth. And I would say, since the pandemic, in fact, there's been a renewed emphasis on kind of really making sure, particularly for associates of color and women, that if there are unintentional barriers, that those are removed. If there are additional mentorships or additional kinds of coursework or certification work or engagement that can happen that can help folks get to where they want to get in their career, that we're doing those things. So empowerment is a key element. And I would say sometimes people think, when they think of financial services, they really do think kind of in an old-fashioned way of that person who helps them with a transaction when they physically drive into a bank, and that's, you know, that's the job at a bank, what used to be called tellers. And that's just, there's so many different kinds of career opportunities that are here. You know, I am part of a corporate social responsibility team that includes people with a lot of different kinds of backgrounds. I majored in religion, and we've recently hired somebody who is a behavioral scientist to work with us. So there is a universe of opportunities, and to learn more, folks can go to our website, www.usbank.com, careers, and just explore.
What's fascinating to me about this, Rocky, is this notion that Working Wardrobes has in common, which is mapping out an individual plan, a growth plan for, you are at point A, you want to get to point B, here are the stops in, on that route, and having a system or people help you get there. That's incredible.
Yeah.
What about you, Bart? What have you seen as the most pressing hiring needs?
Well, I think very much like what Rocky was talking about, our company, Monarch, became part of a company called Optum in 2011. In fact, we just changed our name from Monarch, which has been around forever in Orange County, to Optum Orange County. Optum has about 200,000 employees and is also located in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, so we have that in common. And it's a huge company, 200,000 employees of every type you can imagine. We think of ourselves as a healthcare company, so of course we need nurses and physician assistants and such. We also need social workers because we take care of the disadvantaged, underserved population. But we have within our broader Optum company huge numbers of IT people, customer service staff, and anything and everything you can imagine that is done to make a business like this run. It's not just about the time that the patient sees the doctor in the office. That's only responsible for about 20% of someone's health. It's everything that goes on in between those office visits that you have to focus on. So you need nutritionists, you need nurses to be calling these people at home, visiting them at home. So healthcare is not as simple as it once was, but we do far more than people knew or thought about, including myself in years past. Just one story, when Monarch started, we hired someone to be a receptionist. And that's what she started at. And today she's a vice president in charge of contracting with 200,000 physicians. And again, she's been with us 18 years. Things like that can happen in a company like yours and ours that's willing to invest in their workforce and train their workforce so they can grow. And so we do internally have education programs for our workers to help them advance in their career. We want to know what they want to do next, and sometimes they don't know, so we give them ideas. And that's a really important part of the culture of your company and our company.
This is amazing to me, that maybe the thing I was thinking to look for is not what I'm looking for, actually. What it is more about the process than it is the outcome. And what Working Wardrobes does, which is obviously happening well in both of your companies, is this concept of individualized personal growth. Phenomenal. I heard both of you share a little bit about, historically underserved populations in both of those, shares. And I'm curious, there are so many parts of us that sometimes are on the surface and sometimes aren't. For me, I'm a member of both the LGBTQ+ and Jewish communities, and that's not something that you can necessarily see when you see me, but when you get to know me, you might learn about my identification in those groups. And then when it does become known, I feel a sense of obligation to represent those groups positively and to be the voice of change or to be the advocate. Do either of you share that experience, that needing to represent and be the one affecting change and promoting or advocating on behalf of others?
I'll start. Well, I think I have a great example of that. In Orange County, 1 out of 3 patients in Orange County is on Medicaid, as it's known in the rest of the country. And this is to serve the underserved population. And when Monarch started in 1994, we frankly didn't serve that population. And about 10 years later, I sat down with the leaders and I said, if we're going to be taking care of people in Orange County, we need to take care of all people in Orange County. And we're going to become a medical group serving the Medi-Cal population. frankly, this population has very unique healthcare needs, and it's not just their healthcare, it's the social needs, it's housing, it's transportation, it's food insecurity. And we had a lot to learn because that's not what we had been doing for the first 10 years of our existence. We didn't do it perfectly the first year or two. We learned, and we take excellent care of that population. And I'm very proud that we do that well and serve a huge community in Orange County and frankly through Optum beyond to make sure that they're getting their healthcare needs met. This is an underserved population. There are language barriers, there are social barriers, but we work really hard to address those needs, and it's made a huge difference. If we're going to take care of people, we're going to take care of all people.
Yeah. What about you?
Definitely. Well, as a financial services provider, at our core, we're interested in helping people attain their highest and greatest possibility. For some segments of the community, and you can go back and kind of look at the data. You can see that historically, for example, if you look at home ownership rates, if you look at household wealth for communities of color, especially the Black community, and compare that to household wealth, home ownership percentages for majority communities, there's significant disparities. A lot of our work, we have a charitable investment program, called Community Possible. And at its core, it's really about figuring out where to make investments, charitable investments with the bank's dollars, in order to impact positive change, to create wealth, to support opportunity for groups that are historically underserved, underrepresented, or have been kind of on the receiving end of really disproportionate investment. And typically that's going to be communities of color, it's going to be women, and it's really about understanding how we can take our dollars and be part of the solution to those challenges, be part of pushing the levers to create equity in the communities where we do business. And we do that through our charitable investments. We have kind of three, we call them pillars: work, home, and play. They're pretty much what you think they would be. Work is really about workforce development, really helping invest with community partners in programming that's going to help people overcome barriers to employment. It's also supporting smaller enterprises that often have trouble accessing capital, particularly if they're women or minority owned, really investing in programs and with partners who help them to bridge those gaps. Home is about affordable, decent, safe, affordable housing, whether it's rental or for ownership, investing in programming that makes that possible. And then play is really investments in the performing arts, in sort of the places to play in low and moderate income communities that traditionally either haven't been there or aren't as nice as the places to play in other areas, and really putting money into creating really good places for young people and for neighborhoods and communities. It's about the dollar investment, but it's also about the people investment. Our people out serving on boards, volunteering, either individually as groups in communities, making a difference. In addition, and this is one of the things that's really, I think, particularly in the last couple of years, we've really emphasized is, so we make our charitable investments, our people are out there doing things. We also are interested in making sure that we have products and services that are really meeting those needs, especially in those low and moderate income communities, underserved communities, communities that historically have not seen the kinds of investments that they should have seen, frankly. And when all those things are in alignment, when it's the charitable dollars, it's the business case through our products and services, and it's our people sharing their time and talents, then I think that's a powerful force for good. As a Black woman working in financial services, the issues of equity and access are ones that play out in front of me all the time in lots of different ways. I would say that I'm incredibly proud to work for a company that, particularly after the death of George Floyd, and we're headquartered in Minneapolis, so that happened at our headquarters city, really grappled head on with what the implications in all its different phases of that social sea change means, and has really created a lot of practical policies and programs really designed to get at the root causes of that kind of inequity and make a difference. We created, in response to COVID, we made incredible investments across the footprint in helping with COVID recovery. We also launched our Access program, which is all about figuring out how to address those disparities, those race-based disparities that we were seeing, and helping to ensure that we're helping create generational wealth for communities of color, and starting with some work with the Black community around kind of what are the things that we as a banking organization can do in conjunction with the community, in conjunction with products and services, into creating pathways to creating generational wealth. And then really listening and learning from that, and using that information with other groups that have traditionally been underserved. So I've been tremendously proud of what we've done in terms of sort of head-on looking at what is truly an issue that's been with us for a long time, and taking concrete, active, meaningful steps to be part of the solution.
Oh, undoubtedly. And again, kind of full circle, went back to the why. In both of the examples you shared, it was, why are we doing things the way we're doing things? We can do better, and standing up and making those sea changes happen. Wow. Well, to close out our time together, I want to ask each of you another why question, which is you are each, your companies individually, so supportive of Working Wardrobes and us achieving our mission. Why do you so generously invest in Working Wardrobes with your time, your treasure, your talent? And it's a two-parter. Why, and what would be your mega wish for Working Wardrobes in the coming years?
Well, I'm really proud to be supportive of Working Wardrobes. It is a wonderful cause. It's so important to empower people on a career path in which they can be successful. And that's what you do. Initially, I thought it was just all about giving people nice clothing. That's what it sounds like, Working Wardrobes, right? But no, it's not just that. It's really helping people get on track for a career, for being part of a business or an industry and growing within that business or industry, as both of us described. So it is just something I think is phenomenal that more and more people should support in every way. It's not just about giving us our nice clothes. It's about being here to support the programs that Working Wardrobes has offered to the people in need. And if I had one wish for this coming year, impact twice as many people as you did last year.
I'm in.
All right.
So when we were developing our community possible approach to kind of engagement, one of the statistics that came up was that employers over, and I'm trying to remember the exact percentage, but it was well over 50% of employers said they could not find people who were appropriately qualified to do the work required for the openings that they had. On the flip side of that, a significant percentage of people who were working either didn't like the job they were in, couldn't obtain the job that they wanted to have, or felt like they were kind of under employed. So when you look at both sides of this, Working Wardrobes is a space in which um, for employers, you are bringing a appropriately clothed, as well as appropriately prepared um, uh, person to the fore for positions that they're qualified to do, because you've seen to that, you've seen to the whole person. For employers, that's that's just a critical thing. For somebody who is dealing with just all kinds of barriers to their success, economic barriers to their success, being able to have a job that not only so they're able to interview and get the job, but it's actually a job that they like, that pays them a living wage, and that puts them on a path to something that they have chosen, that they're passionate about, that they feel fits their vision of their best self. You put those two things together and you have something really remarkable and transformational. And that seems to be the very work that Working Wardrobes is doing on a daily basis in the lives of folks. So, there's um, uh, the human potential side of it and helping people find their best selves. Then there's the practical business side of it, which says, we need folks who can do this. Oh, by golly, they've got folks who can do that, and who are prepared to do that, and who are dressed nice when they come to do their when they come
Right,
to
the outside matches
so,
the inside.
yeah, well, so it just makes logical sense for us to be a partner. The other thing we look at is how well the organization executes on its mission. It's great to have a mission, but what about the execution part? What about the way in which they use resources, the way in which they treat the folks who they're working with? What are the outputs there? And I frankly think Working Wardrobes has been courageous in its approach to helping people who are un and underemployed, get to the other side of that. So it's an easy decision for us. The other thing that makes it easy is that our employees have volunteered and are invested in the work. They see it up close and personal, and they see the impact. And so you are what you appear to be and what you purport to be. And the opportunity to partner with an authentic change maker is something that we would not pass up.
Oh,
No, when I listened to what you had to say, it's apparent that our companies clearly benefit from Working Wardrobes, but more importantly, the community benefits from Working Wardrobes, and therefore we all will be better off with the success of Working Wardrobes.
Mhm.
I think that's a wrap, Bart. Thank you so much. This was another episode of Rebuilding Careers. I am so grateful that Rocky and Bart, you were willing and able to join me today. And to our audience, we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.